Don't blame the bees, guys, because sometimes they're working really hard, but we still get blossom drop. Today, we're going to answer this great question left by one of the viewers, and if you stick around for the end, you can have a little fun at my expense because I left in the bloopers. So let's get started. This person is saying that their plant produces fruit about 3 inches long, and then when the flower dries up, the fruit just sort of deflates. And they're asking if this is a pollination issue. And they're saying that they have a plethora of bees, so they really wouldn't think that it was a pollination issue. So they're wondering what advice is best to solve this issue. And the thing is, if this person was to post this on a gardening group, 30 people are going to jump on there and they're going to start hollering hand pollination, hand pollination, hand pollination. And, it can be very frustrating to have the same advice regurgitated at you over and over again when you know that pollination is not the issue because, like he said, I have a plethora of bees. I'm not knocking hand pollination. It's just that I did try it several years ago when I first encountered this problem, and I wasn't sure what was happening, and I found it to be tedious. I have lots of garden chores, and I didn't have time to go out and hand pollinate every morning, and I really didn't see the results that I expected from it. Not that it didn't help, it just didn't make this amazing difference that I really expected it to make. And so I started making sure that I had plenty of bees by planting zinnias and marigolds in my garden. So then I seen I had plenty of bees in the garden. And I'm like this person, well, if I have plenty of bees, then why is my fruit sort of abort mission? And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why your plant will abort mission on your fruit when you know that there's plenty of bees circulating in your garden. So let's look at the entire issue before we decide that what is needed is hand pollination. So I come out and I see fruit like this, and then the next day it looks like this. And I was wondering, well, what is going on? And maybe I don't have enough bees. I went out and checked, and I seen them buzzing around every morning. And so, okay, there's something else going on. So when I looked into the issue further, what I found is that squash plants are heavy feeders. So if you're not fertilizing your squash plants every 2 to 3 weeks with a low nitrogen, high phosphorus, high potassium fertilizer, then you're going to run into this issue because your plant is in survival mode. And what this means is it doesn't have all the nutrients it needs to produce the fruit that you're looking for. And so it is going to put out more male flowers than it will female flowers because the male flowers take a little bit less energy. And if it does produce a female flower and it produces or it sets fruit, then the pollen in that flower may be weak or unviable. And so it's kind of like offering a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to someone who's sitting there looking at a steak. They're going to bypass that peanut butter and jelly and go right for the steak. And so your bees are going to do the same thing. They're going to skip over that flower and they're going to go for better foraging. So in order to entice those bees to come to the flowers that you want it to, then you have to make sure that your plant is well fed. And you definitely want to make sure that it's low nitrogen because too much nitrogen and you're going to get a lot of leafy greens, but not a lot of fruit. So it's high phosphorus and high potassium. So a 5-10-10. Or you can do an all-purpose like a 4-4-4, and that will help. The other thing about using high nitrogens is if you're in a zone like 8B where I'm at here in Arkansas, then we have 90+ degree weather, and too much nitrogen can actually be damaging to your plants in this kind of weather. So you want to be really careful in how you fertilize your plants. And the next thing that you need to do is that you need to make sure that your plants are receiving consistent watering. It's really important. This is actually important throughout your garden. You always want to make sure that you're watering consistently. And you don't just want to wet the surface. You want to give it a deep drink. And I would recommend getting a meter. You can stick your finger in the ground, and if it's wet 3 to 4 inches down, and you can check it that way. But to really be accurate, I have found that using a meter that you can stick down in the ground and you can get an accurate reading of how moist it is and whether or not you need to water. So you want to water deeply and then check it and don't let it dry out completely. You want to keep it moist, but make sure that you're not oversaturating your plant. So the water meter is good because sometimes the surface will appear dry, but underneath it's actually still wet. This way you can tell without having to stick your finger into the dirt. Now there's another issue that happens with your plants, and so if your fruit is not turning a dark yellow and shriveling up, but it's rather turning dark on the end and getting kind of mushy, this problem is called blossom end rot. The solution is basically the same as the first issue. You want to make sure you have consistent watering and that you fertilize. And this will help with the blossom end rot as well, because it's not getting the calcium it needs. It's not taking those nutrients up. A lot of times it's not because there's not calcium in your ground. This is the thing people start telling you to put eggshells down and things like that. But usually there's plenty of calcium in your grounds. It's the uptake of it. And this is caused by inconsistent watering, root damage, acidic soil, or even too much nitrogen can cause this. The other issue that you'll run into, and this is a problem that I'm having right now, is that we've had a lot of rain. And if you're having a lot of rain in your area, then you're going to get things like powdery mildew. So you go out there and the end of your fruit is this fuzzy black stuff. And this is very frustrating because it just rots your fruit right there on the vine. And that is a mildew issue. One of the things that I found that does help with that is to remove any flowers that have become kind of decayed. If you see that the flower is not going to open back up, I would go ahead and remove the flower and kind of dry the tip of the fruit. This helps it prevent that from getting your fruit. So besides making sure that I remove any fruit that's been affected or any leaves that have been affected, I also spray with neem oil, usually in the evening. I don't like to spray in the morning because of the bees in the garden, so I usually spray in the evening. But this year I'm going to try something new. If you've tried it, I would love to hear from you in the comments, and that's the hydrogen peroxide solution. So it's just your normal 3% hydrogen peroxide that you get at the store, and you mix it 1 part hydrogen peroxide to 10 parts water. And I'm going to give that a try this year and see how it goes. And of course, I'll let you know the results. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss any future gardening tips and advice. And my chicken is really getting after it over there. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. There, she must have laid an egg. Oh my goodness. I don't know if it makes any sense. I'm gonna be doing this forever.